I just want to address a few of the things that were brought up. We have rules. I hold in my hand right here the 2017 Phoenix Planning Convention, which was a convention of the states that met in Phoenix in 2017 and developed rules for a balanced budget convention. These rules were modeled after the rules of many other conventions of the states. What opponents never bring up is that there were nearly 40 conventions of the states, all with similar rules, all with similar functions, all honoring their instructions, all honoring their oaths. We never bring that up, but that's the facts. What about the facts that there have been over 40 different cases up to the Supreme Court, federal courts, that have addressed nearly every issue around Article 5? These cases are never brought up by the opponents because these cases say things they don't want to hear, even cases that I read today. Let me close by saying this without drawing this up. There are several federal functions in the United States Constitution. Article 4, Section 4, Clause 4, the times, places, and manners of choosing senators and representatives shall be prescribed by the state legislatures thereof. It's our job, it's our federal function to manage federal elections from the state. Yet H.R. 1 earlier this last year sought to take that away from us. Another federal function that the $1.7 trillion spending plan that just was passed in December went after was our Article 2 function of appointing delegates to the Electoral College electors. That bill undermined and took away our function as state legislatures to appoint Electoral College electors. Is that what we want to put up with? Article 4, Section 4 gives us the ability to apply for to the Congress, to the Washington, if we have an invasion or if our cities are burning or if there's domestic violence. Would we take those three federal functions and say, nah, we don't really want to manage our federal elections. Nah, we don't really care if we get to choose our electors to Electoral College. And if our cities are burning like some cities burnt last year, are we going to say, nah, let's not act on that federal function to call in help? And then we come to Article 5, another federal function, given by the framers when Washington is not responsive anymore, when they become abusive, oppressive, and are doing things that are detrimental to the foundational nature of our nation. Madison said this in a quote, and I quote him in a letter he wrote to Edward Everett in 1830. He said this, and this was one of his last letters before he passed away. He said, should the provisions of the Constitution as herein reviewed prove not to secure the government and rights of the states against abuses and usurpations by the national authority, the final resort within the purview of the Constitution is an amendment to the Constitution according to the process applicable to the states. These framers and ratifiers believed that Article 5 Convention to propose was a process to check federal power when it's becoming abusive. It's been mentioned that we take an oath under Article 6 to support this Constitution. I'm asking you today to support Article 5, a convention to propose amendments. I brought SJ2 because the fiscal issues are serious. Good Senator Zolnikoff brought up the fact of the trillions of debt that we've been accumulating and the interest payments. The preamble of the Constitution says that we should provide for the common defense. You cannot provide for the common defense when you're spending more on interest payments than the entire federal budget for defense. You can't do it. You cannot provide for the general welfare or secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity if you don't have the option to propose an amendment when Congress won't. Do you really think Congress would ever propose an amendment for term limits? Do you really think they'll ever propose an amendment for fiscal restraint? The reason they won't is because it's about control. Congress is imperial. They want to control you, your family, your money, your health care, everything in your life they want to control. Remember that our forefathers did not fight a war against the British. They fought a war against big, centralized government that tried to manage every minutia of their lives. And here we are, full circle, 240-some years later, or 250 years later, with the same problem. What they fought for, we need to fight for. Every provision of the Constitution should be given some meaning. And this provision has meaning for such a time as this. Many times when I speak on this issue, I tell a story. About my grandchildren. So one day I'm working on Article 5 issues, and I have three screens in my office. On my right-hand screen, I had the debt clock up, and I don't know if you've all seen the debt clock. If you have never seen it, just search it, us.clock.com. On the right screen was a debt clock running red numbers, trillions and trillions and trillions of debt. $277 trillion of unfunded liabilities. $12 trillion of guaranteed debt for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, etc. And my little grandson, Harrison, who was 6, came in and sat on my knee. He said, "Papa, what's that?" I said, "That's the debt clock." Harrison, my other grandson, 7, comes in at the same time and says, "What's the debt clock?" I said, "Well, that's Congress spending more money than they have." And then Henry said, "Papa, why won't it stop?" That young man didn't understand what he was saying. But it hit me. Why won't it stop? I suggested it won't stop because state legislatures in this nation will not take up Article 5, do our duty, and send an application to Congress to force Congress to stop. They won't stop on their own. As Reagan said, Congress will not discipline itself. We have to rely on the states to force them to act on our amendment. That was the balanced budget amendment. You can't secure liberty. You can't provide for the common defense. You can't ensure domestic tranquility if every edict and all these rules and laws are coming down from Washington, dividing us as states. We have to unite. Members, I ask you for a green light today. This resolution is about the economic survival of our nation. I ask for a green light. Thank you.
Question now arises on the motion of Senator McGillvray that when this committee does rise and report having under consideration Senate Joint Resolution 2, recommend the same do pass. So any of those in favor of the motion signify by voting aye. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? The clerk will record the vote.
Mr. President, 26 senators vote aye and 24 senators vote nay.
26 senators having voted aye and 4 having voted nay. Senate Joint Resolution 2 has passed second reading.